How's it going, everyone? I am back with another video. This is going to be my week 4 recap video where I go through all the NFL games that took place this past weekend and break down my takeaways, thoughts, um, to recap the games in general, all that good stuff. So, just diving straight in here. So, the first game was the Thursday night game, which was Seahawks Cardinals, and it kind of went how I kind of predicted it to. I thought the Seahawks defense would dominate. I thought the Cardinals defense would play a good game too, but Seattle would be in complete control of the game. And it'd be relatively close, but Seattle, I in my mind there wasn't too much doubt Seattle would win the game in the end. Was fairly confident with them. And they were dominating the game. Their defense was holding the Cardinals to 3 points, and they got a field goal late in the third quarter with my old guy from the Patriots, Chad Ryland, who can't miss for the Cardinals, and all he did with us was miss. Although he did give us Drake Mayo that missed field goal to tie the game, send the game to overtime against the Giants. So I guess thank you for that, Chad Ryland. Even though especially it's a Patriots fan, it sucks to lose any game, especially against the Giants, but that's okay. But getting off topic here, getting sidetracked per usual, but that's okay. So yeah, Seattle is dominating the game, and then the Cardinals end up getting a touchdown drive to cut it to one score, and then the Seahawks throw down the field. They missed the field goal to make it a two-possession game. Cardinals tied it up. Well, there was like 30 seconds left, and then Chad Ryland put on a Patriots uniform and messed the kickoff up, and it didn't go in the landing zone, so the Arizona started at the not Arizona, Seattle started at the 40-yard line. And a couple plays later, they get in field goal range, and Jason Myers gets the walk-off field goal to win the game for Seattle. So yeah, kind of a lower scoring defensive game like me and most people predicted. Um, Darnold has looked good. Seattle's offense has played better than I've expected to. Darnold too. Seattle 3-1. That they probably should be 4-0, but you can argue they got a bit lucky in that Steelers game with the mucked punt. But who knows? Maybe they should have won that game anyway. Not the muff punt, but the Johnson, the Steelers, just letting it bounce in and not making an effort. That boneheaded play on his part. Um, but and they got a bit unlucky against the Niners. You can honestly argue with that pass at the end, but then you can argue they got some luck in that game too, and their offense, not luck, but good opportunities that they kind of blew. Their defense is getting opportunities, and the offense weren't taking advantage of it. What I'm trying to say is they can honestly be 4-0 very easily. They're 3-1. If their offense can keep playing like this, look out. Even though I didn't think Seattle was going to be great record wise this year because of Darnold, he's played a lot better than I thought. So if they can continue to play like this, their offense, look out, because their defense I think is going to be able to sustain this level of play. So Seattle could be a major sleeper team. On the other end, the Cardinals, I mean, the whole year, even when they were, 2-0 against the Niners, or going into the game against the Niners, their offense was kind of just like meh. Their defense was really good, but their offense kind of like meh. It was bad most of this game. Marvin Harrison, a lot of talk on him going into this game. He caused an interception. He had another bad play. I think he dropped it from what I remember. And then he, on that drive, the Cardinals late in the, or not late in the fourth quarter, but in the fourth quarter when they got it to cut it to a one-score game, he was big on that drive. He caught the touchdown. So, good. Hopefully he can bounce back. He was very relieved, it looked like, when he got that touchdown. Cardinals, I think, will be fine. I think they'll kind of be similar to last year, but their offense has been very up and down like it was last year. I think that'll probably be the story of this year. They pretty much kept their offense the same, and obviously James Conner, that hurts. And then they put Benson on IR. So I guess DeMercado, this is the number one running back now, even though he's like their third down back. So Cardinals, I think, will be fine, but not a great performance offensively until the end. But their defense is good. Seattle almost blew this one. They dominated. Were in complete control, almost blew it, but good win for them. Think both teams will be fine. Good win for Seattle in this one, though. Vikings Steelers. This was the Ireland game, was blanking on it for a second there. Yes, the Dublin game. And the score might be a bit misleading because the Steelers were in control of this game for most of it. They, jumped out to an early lead. They just built on it. And then the Vikings late, made a push to come back. And honestly, I thought they might have come back at the end of the game when the Steelers punched. I'm like, are they seriously going to blow this game? But the defense held on. But the Vikings did not play too great. The Steelers' offense was moving the ball. They played a lot better than I expected them to. Rodgers looked a lot better than I expected him to against the Flores defense, especially the way he looked last year against it when he was still with the Jets, which was another international game they had. I'm pretty sure it was in London, if I remember right. Yeah, the Steelers defense looked great in this game. Looked like, typical Pittsburgh Steelers defense that we're used to. Wentz, he was getting pressured left and right. Some injuries to the Vikings offensive line. It's super banged up going into the game next week against Cleveland. So maybe Myles Garrett can feast in that game. So their line's a mess. Steelers took advantage. They were playing great. And then, Minnesota pushed to come back. They're backed up down 10 at their own goal line with like 2 and change left. There was 3 and change left. Jordan Addison on blown coverage by the Steelers wide open. He gets tackled at like the 2-yard line. Then it took 5 plays after that. They got a touchdown on 4th and goal. And they get the ball back with a minute left, somewhere around there. And, it went through a pick. They lost. It was overturned to an incomplete pass, and the Steelers ended up holding on. But, Vikings made a late push. Again, just by the score, you probably think back and forth, close game, but nope, the Steelers were in control, dominated most of it. Now, if their defense can play like this and their offense can play like this most of the season, look out for the Steelers. Vikings, they're a really hard team to read this year. They look, great one week, like the Bengals. They look great in the fourth quarter against the Bears. They looked awful the first 3 quarters. Then they played abysmal against the Falcons, and they played pretty poorly in this game. They're a hard team to read. Very interesting game against the Browns, who were starting Dylan Gabriel. This week, another international game they have. I believe it's in London. Not a great game for the Vikings, but Steelers, very impressive win in this one. They look like the Steelers. Looked like the Steelers. Good win for them there. Oh, boy. Chargers, Giants. So kind of what I talked about in my video when I was, laying out the path to how the Giants could win this game, I think is kind of what happened. I said that, there's no film really to get on Jackson Dart. Maybe he gives the offense a boost, if nothing else, a morale boost. He gives the, Chargers some things they weren't prepared for because they really can't be prepared for. His scrambling certainly was a big difference. He didn't light it up, passing wise, but he had a lot of scrambling and extending the plays, which hurt the Chargers here. And I also said maybe this is the game the Giants' defensive line breaks out. Well, that's exactly what happened. The Chargers' offensive line was a mess this game. I mean, they could not protect Herbert at all in this game. Herbert was off. He had 2 picks. And the Chargers defense, I don't think, played too well either, but they played well enough to win the game. They also had a big stand in the red zone where it was 4th and goal. The Giants went for it. Chargers incomplete pass. They're down 3. You think, okay, well, here come the Chargers. They're going to win the game. Well, honestly, the reason I don't think they won the game, I think they lost, is mainly because of Greg Roman's play calling. Now, what has been a surprise this year with the Chargers? Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman, their run-first mentality, right? We saw that last year, the Chargers. This year, it surprised many people, including myself, how much they pass the ball rather than run the ball. This game, they're running the ball. They didn't run it much, but when they ran it, they were getting decent clips. Hampton obviously went off in this game. I mean, they lost Joe Alt in the middle of the game. So the offensive line protecting Herbert, even though Herbert in the past game has been good this season. Well, more than good. It's been great this season, I would say, up to this point. They've had an issue protecting him. And, going against arguably the most talented pass rush in the league with a banged-up line, already missing, your star tackle that goes up before the year, Slater. Then you lose Joe Alt. That's a problem. That's a problem going against this Giants line. And so they just continually pass, 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 pass. They pass, they pass. Oh, and did I mention they continued to pass? And Herbert's getting pressured. There's no time. Versus running the ball, they're getting a decent clip. Hampton did a 50-plus yard touchdown run. Besides that, he got like, I want to say like 5 or 6 yards per carry, it felt like, besides that. And they just refused to run the ball. They had 12 carries in total, I believe. And they're just passing. They're consistently passing way too much. If they just ran the ball, balanced it out more, I think they would have won the game. But they just passed it way too much. So I think Greg Roman, this game was honestly primarily on him. I thought this could be a nightmare for Dart going against this Chargers defense. Now, if this was, let's say, a couple weeks, in the future into the season where Dart has a couple of starts under his belt, there's a lot more film on him, I honestly think that would have been the case. If this was Russell Wilson, I think the Chargers would have won in a blowout. But, Dart looked pretty good. Again, he didn't light it up passing-wise, but he looked pretty good. Obviously going to talk about the Neighbors injury. Neighbors tore his ACL. When that happened, I was like, all right, well, I think the Chargers are still going to win the game anyway, even though the Giants are kind of in control. It felt like they were outplaying them. Certainly, they'll win it after, right? And that was in the second quarter when it happened. Nope, the Giants still moved the ball well after that. Obviously, that's just a massive blow. Neighbors, super exciting, fun talent to watch. That really sucks to see him out for the year. Obviously, a big blow to the Giants. But, Dart looked good, very promising against arguably, you can say, the best defense, best coach defense in the league. So really solid win for the Giants here. The defensive line, again, went a long way to win them this game. Chargers, very disappointed in the play calling by Greg Roman. Defense didn't play too great, but played well enough to win the game, as I mentioned. Tough loss for them, kind of a trap game. I don't think they overlooked Dart and the Giants, but they didn't play their best, but credit to the Giants. And, they played the Saints this week, which they very well could win that game. So maybe the Giants will be on a 2-game win streak. Dart could be 2-0 as a starter, but we'll have to see. Good win for the Giants in this one, though, even though that pains me to say as a Patriots fan. Speaking of the Patriots, my team. Yes, here we go. Here we go. I actually by the time this is uploaded, my video on this game alone will be uploaded where I recap exclusively this game, like I do every week with the Patriots. Can't talk. So look out for that if you're interested. But basically, the big takeaway from this one is we absolutely dominated the game. Very pleased how the game went. Our offense was phenomenal. Had a lot of short fields, so the statistics aren't going to be like eye-widening for the most part. Marcus Jones, insane punt return, touchdown, had another insane punt return. He had like 160 something yards in punt return yardage, which was absolutely insane. The one critique I have is we got to stop with these slow starts. 3 of the 4 games, our opponents went right down the field, scored. Our offense kind of comes out lethargic, not looking too good. So we got to avoid those starts. I guess the positive is we're good at adjusting on the fly, apparently, at least so far. Zach Core, our interim defensive coordinator, that's what you want to call him, our inside linebackers coach, replacing Terrell Williams, who unfortunately has prostate cancer. He's called the defense for Core has for 3 of the 4 games now. The Dolphins game wasn't very good, but it made the clutch stop at the end there, clutched up in the second half, I felt like. It played great last week against the Steelers, I believe, at least in my opinion. And then this game, it played great too. The Panthers were moving the ball even after that first touchdown drive where they missed the extra point, gave us a bit of a momentum boost, I think. They were moving the ball around midfield, past midfield. We ended up stopping them, holding the long field goal attempts. And one of their, 2 touchdowns this game was in garbage time at the end. So I'm not too concerned there. May has looked phenomenal this season. Honestly, I think 4 games in, you can make an argument he's in the MVP contention. Jesus, can't talk. He's in the MVP race. That's what I was trying to say. What else? Oh, I don't think I mentioned this in my recap video for this game, but Stevenson, glad to see him not get completely doghoused. He played solid in this game, made a couple big plays, except I have like a heart attack every time he carries the ball whenever he gets contact and just waiting for him to fumble. Good to see the coaching staff hasn't lost faith in him. And at least good for his mentality to not fumble in this game. Yeah, I'm just very pleased with this game. Very optimistic on the team moving forward. We're just going to get better and better as the year goes on. Seems like we're really gelling, getting to be one big cohesive unit with this new coaching staff, new system. And, just very happy we got a blowout win rather than a close win. Panthers, I think, are a terrible team so far. They had one fluke against the Falcons that people, I think, kind of overhyped them on. So good to see us get a blowout win. Panthers, oh boy, they are down right now. But very happy for my team in this one. Browns Lions. This game kind of also went as how I expected. I said in my picks video that I think it'll be similar to the Browns game against the Ravens week 2, where Browns defense kind of keeps it close for a while, but the Lions are in the lead. And then as the game goes on, and in the later stages, they get a touchdown or two and take control. Kind of what happened. Browns defense kept it, relatively within reach. They actually had the lead at one point. They were right down the field and scored on one of their early, I think it was their second drive, I want to say. So they had the lead at one point, and then their defense kept it close for a while, but the Lions kind of just, they got some scores later in the game, not late in the game, but later in the game to really take the lead. They have not missed a beat offensively outside of week 1, missing Ben Johnson, which is surprising. The defense with Shepard calling the plays, he's done a great job this season. I'm very surprised at how well the Lions are playing. They're 3-1, and then they play. Who do they play this week? They play a really shitty team, I'm pretty sure. Oh God, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Oh, that's right. They play the Bengals, who shouldn't be a shitty team, but they are right now. So the way that both teams are playing, they should win that game too. But who knows? We'll have to see. Browns, they just benched Flacco. They're starting Dylan Gabriel. Only a matter of time. Flacco had one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen in my entire life in this game. He just floated up. There was absolutely no one whatsoever in the area. Just a line. It was like a very slowly floated pass. It was just bad. I thought maybe it did get tipped. I only saw it once, but I thought it must have had to have gotten tipped for the pass to be that poorly thrown. But yeah, so tough for Joe Flacco. Their offense has just been awful all season. Yeah, tough one for the Browns. Really, solid win, taking care of business against a bad team rather than winning close. Blowout win for the Lions. Very surprised at how they're playing. Pleasantly surprised. I like the Lions. I don't see how any neutral fan doesn't like the Lions, but unless your team is playing against them, obviously. But yeah, great win for them in this one. Tough one for the Browns. Saints Bills. Now, the score is kind of a bit misleading in this game. The Saints were right there with the Bills for most of this game. They actually were throwing into the end zone fairly, with a decent amount of time left in the fourth quarter to take the lead. And Cooks, my old guy from the Patriots, dropped it. I think it was Brandon Cooks dropped it. And then, the Bills end up scoring a touchdown to get a 2-score win. But the Bills' defense is, I'm not sure what the statistics say if they support this, but to me, and I know some other people have been talking about this in the media, to me, the Bills' defense has not been good this season at all. It played good against the Jets week 2. Besides that game, it has not played good. The Saints had a horrible sequence in this game at the end of the first half where the Bills had no timeouts. I believe it was second and goal. There was like a minute and a half left, somewhere around there. And instead of, just guaranteeing that this is basically it and just kind of running the ball, I think they did incompletion, and then they ran they did incompletion, and then they ran the Philly special, and it got picked off. So that was, I don't mind the Philly special call, even though it just hurts to bring that up as a Patriots fan, just hearing those two words. I don't mind the call because it's like, the Saints, no. All right, well, we're terrible this year. We're big underdogs. What do we really have to lose in this game? So why not? I actually kind of like the call, honestly, with that logic, but maybe not in that exact scenario. Obviously it's easy to second guess because it didn't work out. But there's a sequence in this game where the Saints defense kind of was holding the Bills offense in check for a while. Allen had his first interception of the season, his first turnover of the season. Um, the Saints defense, it's bad on paper. Well, not, it's statistically bad, I think, but talent wise, they're decent on paper. I think, Brandon Staley, even though it was pretty much a disaster for the Chargers most of his tenure, I actually think he can be a good defensive coordinator. We saw it with the Rams, the number one ranked defense. That's why he got the Chargers job. And this game, even though the Bills scored 31, there was a good period in this one where the Bills were the Bills offense was kind of just stagnant. And the Saints, I mean, they're 0-4, but 3 of the 4 games they've been pretty close. The Seahawks game was obviously a disaster, but besides that game, the Saints have been close in all of their games this season. Again, they're a bad team still, but at least that's something going for them. And the Bills, I think this is Sean McDermott's last year. I mean, the defense is not good. That's his pedigree. I mean, he gets eliminated by the Chiefs every time he plays them in the playoffs. They come up short every year. How much longer can you keep Sean McDermott? Josh Allen's bailed him out so many times. Someone made a comment on social media that Sean McDermott's like Zach Taylor with a better PR. I'm like, Zach Taylor, people say gets bailed out by Burrow. I'm like, well, that's actually a pretty good analogy, I think. But anyway, getting off top here. Bills good to win the game. It feels like they played a bit down to the competition, you can say. But, they got the win. Big game against my team, the Patriots, Sunday night. Saints, they lost, but, they were right there. So, who knows? Saints, if they can, play at this level, they can pull off a couple wins this season. But Bills, at least they got the win from their perspective. Eagles, Bucks, this was a really good game. The Eagles were blowing the Bucks out early in this game, and it felt like they were just in complete control. The Bucks were just out of sync. Just things weren't going their way. The Eagles on the Bucks' first drive get a blocked punt for they return for a touchdown, which honestly, if they didn't get that, they probably would have lost the game. Bucks at the end of the first half, they get a ridiculously long field goal from Chase McLaughlin, and from that point on, they pretty much dominated this game. The offense was clicking in gear. Abuka got a ridiculous touchdown. You can maybe say it was a bit lucky with the ball placement there that the Eagles didn't at least bat it down. Bucky Irving got another ridiculously long touchdown. The only kind of blemish they had two, but the first blemish for the Bucs in the second half was Bucky Irving fumbled, which people were saying, it shouldn't have been a fumble. They didn't really show it that much on Red Zone, but they ruled it a fumble, and then the Eagles scored a touchdown after that. Besides that, the Eagles had basically no offense in the second half. Jalen Hurts didn't have a single completion in the second half, and they won the game. A lot of people talking about that statistic. Eagles offense has been very weird this season. I don't know what the hell is going on there. It's like people saying it's like the Brian Johnson-led offense from 2 years ago, the 23 season. What else from this game? Oh yeah, then the second blemish was it was 31-23. The Bucs are driving down the field. Baker, doing Baker things, got out of a sack, making miracles happen, and then the pass got tipped and he got picked in the end zone. Then the Bucs, driving late in the game, do or die. They ended up falling short on a 4th down conversion. And then the Eagles, there's a couple seconds left, 4th down, so they just took the ball. And, they ran out of the back of the end zone to take the safety. And they ended up winning the game 31-25. Bucs, really a lot to be optimistic on, even though you lost the game. I mean, still, the Bucs are just absolutely derailed with injuries right now. They got Wirfs back and Godwin back this game, but, still, they get a mounting number of injuries. They didn't have Mike Evans this game. Going against the Eagles, who, again, defending Super Bowl champs, they're 4-0, even though they're not, the greatest 4-0 team in NFL history by any means. It's still 4-0, obviously very well coached. Um, Even though I don't think Nick Sirianni is a very great head coach, I think he's kind of just gets bailed out by his coordinators most of the time. Well, offensively they're a mess, but they still get Vic Fangio at least. Um, but what I'm trying to say is, arguably the best team in the league, defending Super Bowl champs. You're injured, you get off to a really bad start, you fight back in the game, and you're right there. And barring 2 turnovers in the second half, that you feel like you shouldn't have happened, you probably win this game. So a lot to be optimistic on for the Bucs here. Eagles, another game where it's like, how many of these going to happen? Like, how many of these 9 lives do the Eagles have where they just hold on to win? It's kind of like the Chiefs from last year. It's like the Eagles from the 23 season where they're winning, but it's not convincing. They're just holding on, kind of like the Chiefs from last year. So yeah, I know they talked about that on First Things First, that this year's Eagles are sort of like the Chiefs from last year. Defending Super Bowl champs, they're winning not convincingly. People are critiquing them, or not critiquing, criticizing them rather. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with them. I think they'll certainly be a juggernaut still, but interesting to see what happens to the offense. AJ Brown tweeting out something, people, oh, is he going to get traded for like the 400th time? That debate. Their offense is just, I don't even know. I've never been a big Jalen Hurts, guy as far as pure passing the football. I know that's a big knock on him. I think Hurts, I don't think he's bad by any means. As a joke, I call him J Mid Hurts. Now, I honestly think Hurts is like, I don't think he's top 10, but I think he's probably, in the average rankings, if you rank all the quarterbacks, in my opinion, at least as far as passing. Now, I know obviously rushing's a part of it too, but most of his rushing touchdowns are just from the tush push. So, and obviously he does it better than any other quarterback in the league, but still, I mean, when you're like, oh, he has this many rushing touchdowns, well, it's just because he gets his ass pushed from behind by his linemen from the 1 yard line. It's a majority of them. Passing. I mean, what other quarterback in the league cannot complete a pass in the second half and win the game? And it's not like, he's had a stat line that bad, but he's had so many stat lines in his career where it's an extremely like average or subpar passing day, and the Eagles win in a blowout. I think Hurts, if you put him on a team like last year's Bengals, I think they maybe win 5 games where his defense is bad and he has to pass to win the game. There's been very little situations in his career that I can think of off the top of my head where he's in a situation where he has to pass to win the game, and the defenses know that he has to pass, and he's been able to do it. The only scenario I can think of is Week 3 against the Saints last year, where they needed a touchdown to take the lead, and he needed to pass. The defense knew that, and it was third. The drive was going nowhere. It was 3rd and 12, and he kind of gets bailed out because 2 Saints defenders run into each other on a crossing route that any quarterback can make the throw on. He throws it, and Goddard gets a shit ton of yardage after it. I like Hurts' demeanor. I don't mean to just shit on him here. I just think he gets extremely bailed out by the team and the amount of talent he has. But yeah, I didn't mean just go on a complete rant on Hurts there, but I'm just saying that the Eagles offense it's been very weird this season. But anyway, I guess the Eagles, at least you got the win here, but the Bucs, they got, and again, they're not taking it as a moral victory, I'm sure, but they they are a really good team this year. Shouldn't hang their heads at all in this game. Commanders Falcons, this was a shootout. Now, again, the Falcons are a weird team. I mean, they get shut out by the awful Panthers last week. They lose 30-0. And then against the Commanders team, which, again, the Commanders, I think, are going to regress a bit this year, and I think Jayden Daniels too. But, against a pretty good Commanders team, you would say, they put up 34. The Commanders' defense has been pretty bad all season, it felt like, outside of the first game. even last week in the blowout win against the Raiders, they made Geno, who's been absolutely abysmal most of the season, leads the league in picks. He had what 3 touchdowns, hit a bunch of yards at a really good passer rating. Up top of my head, something like that. Um, and this game they didn't have Daniels. Mariota played good as he usually does for the Commanders. They didn't have McLaurin, but the offense certainly was the issue. Their defense was bad. I guess maybe moving Zach Robinson down down to the field from the booth, maybe that solves some things. Penix had a really bad interception. He threw it right to I forget who it was, but right to the linebacker. No one was like, it was just a very bad pass underthrown to his intended receiver. Looks like his intended receiver was the DB. But besides that, Penix played good, had some nice deep shots. Bijan got it going. Commanders' defense was a mess. They're down 10 late. They kick a field goal, like a minute and a half left. They didn't get the onside. The Falcons just kneeled it out. Falcons, I think, are going to kind of float around 500 most of the season. They'll probably look like this some games. I don't think they'll get shut out again, but who knows? They'll probably have some bad performances like they did against the Panthers, have some close wins, probably more close losses than close wins. Probably finish around like 7-10, 8-9, somewhere around there. Commanders, I still think will be around a 10-win team, like I predicted, 10-7. Then I think I predict them to get 7 seed in my preseason predictions. I think they'll end up finishing around there, but their defense is certainly going to get better. But not too concerned there. It looks like Jane Daniels is going to come back. So even though Mariota's been really good for them, bit of a boost for Washington. But Falcons good to get the win. Solid win here. Commanders, tough loss. Oh, speaking of tough losses, Titans, Texans. The Titans, I don't even know where to begin. They are just a complete disaster. I'm honestly, if Brian Callahan, I was going to say I'm a bit surprised he wasn't fired after this game, but not really, maybe a bit too early. If he is still employed by the Titans by week 8, then they seriously need to evaluate. Unless they start winning, they need to really look themselves in the mirror. I mean, they switched play callers, which I thought might be, give them a bit of a boost, at least for this game. But it didn't. They couldn't even score a point. Now, my old guy for the Patriots, Ryan Suckup, missed a field goal, so maybe they should have put up points, even though it was a longer one. I think maybe at 40-something yards. They didn't score any points. And again, they're going against a really good Texans defense. The Texans offense, maybe it figured something out in the fourth quarter. Wasn't doing too much, like kind of the story most of the season. They had the lead for the most part, but it was like 6-0. Then they ended up getting a touchdown. Didn't get the 2 point. Then I think they scored 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. So maybe they figured something out against a solid Titans defense. Their defense obviously played phenomenal. Like it's played really well most of this year. I just feel really bad for Cam Ward. I actually think Cam Ward has played solid this season. It's just the offensive execution and coaching's been awful. His receivers are dropping the ball left and right. I feel bad for Cam Ward. He got up in his post-game press conference and basically said, well, if we're keeping it real, we're ass right now. I mean, he's not lying, but that's probably not the best thing you want to hear as from the team or whatever, being on the team, but he's not lying. Brian Callahan is just terrible. He needs to be fired. Just a disaster for I honestly can't think of much positive for the Titans here. I guess their defense kept them in it for a while. That's the only positive thing I can think of. They had multiple situations where it's 3rd and long and they ran like 3rd and 10, not, like 3rd and 20. They're just conceding, getting some more yards for the punt. It's like 3rd and 10 at midfield and they're running the ball. Like, what are you doing? What do you possibly think is going to happen? And then like they get, stopped for like a 2-yard gain. And then the sidelines like has their hands up in disbelief. Like running the ball on 3rd and 10 didn't work. Like who would have guessed? I mean, that coaching is just, my God. I mean, it is just baffling how bad the coaching is, at least on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, they were better last year with a worse quarterback, with Will Levis. Cam Ward's been better than him, and they were better last year. Oh, boy, Titans. Just an awful loss. But Texans, they very much needed this game. And now they get a bit of a break with the Ravens, who, should be a blowout loss on paper for them. However, the Ravens defense ridiculously injured. The Lamar is likely going to be out, so they probably should win this game now. The Texans get a bit of a break there with some injuries, but maybe they figured something out, as I said, with their offense. Good win for them here. Good to get on the board in the win column over division rival that upset them last year in Houston. So good for the Texans. Very much needed this one. Colts Rams. This was a really entertaining game. Now, going into this game, I thought the Colts were going to be legit. I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl this year or anything like that. But going into this game, I'm like, all right, I think the Colts are at least going to contend for a playoff spot. Maybe they can knock a team off. They'll be a legit team to make some noise this season. I didn't doubt that going into this game, but it kind of reinforced it even more for me. The Rams are my NFC Super Bowl. I had them losing to the Ravens. The Ravens, I don't think will be making the Super Bowl anymore, but who knows? But I feel pretty good about my Rams pick to make the Super Bowl. So the Rams are my NFC Super Bowl pick, and the Colts. They probably should have won this game, honestly. A.D. Mitchell single-handedly cost them 14 points. He made a ridiculous catch in basically double coverage, made a move to get free, fumbled it. Deshaun Jackson did at the 1 yard line, so it's a touchback instead of a touchdown. Jonathan Taylor, Deshaun Jackson in a critical game for them against Denver late in the year last year, fighting for playoff positioning. That's twice now that it's happened, back-to-back years. And then, speaking of Jonathan Taylor, he has a big touchdown run, like a 50-yard touchdown run, and A.D. Mitchell gets called for a holding penalty. Even with that, as soon as that fumble happened, I'm like, all right, well, the Rams are going to win the game, and the Colts and their fans are going to be looking back at that play and be like, well, this is where we lost the game. Even after that, the Colts had the lead with like 7 minutes left or something, maybe 11 minutes or something like that in the fourth quarter, and they forced a turnover and had the ball in Rams territory, if I remember right. So I'm like, oh, maybe they are going to win this game still. And then they kind of, I don't want to say collapsed, but the Rams got some scores late in the game. They got a touchdown on fourth down. They get a touchdown, like 3 minutes left to tie it. Colts can't do much. They punt it back. And literally the first play, I think it was the first or second play. I'm pretty sure it's the first play. Who was it? Was it Puka? I want to say it was Puka, but I'm not 100% sure. Actually, I don't think it was. I forget who it was. No, it was who the hell was it? Who the hell was it? He's been on the team for a while, one of their deeper receivers. Is it Tutu Atwell, I think? Pretty sure it was Tutu Atwell, not 100% sure. The Colts DB, unfortunately for them, just fell on the play. And so the coverage is blown because he slipped, and Tutu Atwell gets it, goes up the field, and scores. And then, the Colts, they get a few first downs, but Daniel Jones threw a pick to lose the game. They showed all three of their timeouts. The Rams got a first down 2 plays later to win the game and ice it. So tough loss to the Colts, but again, they're right there with even, I guess it's Super Bowl contender at worst, or at least, one of the better teams in the league at minimum, the Rams, on the road. Daniel Jones kind of came back down to earth a bit. He still played a good game, but he came back down to earth. The interception, again, easy to second guess. It looked like Taylor was wide open on a check down for him in front of him. They still had like 40 seconds left, something like that. With, I think, at least 2. They might have hit all 3. No, they did have all 3 of their timeouts. They had all 3 of their timeouts after the pick. But, Colts, I think, will be fine. I feel off the top of my head, I think they play a bad team this week that they should win. Oh, they play the Raiders, if I remember right. So, struggling team. Raiders, I guess, could upset them, but the Colts probably should win that game. Certainly the better team so far. Tough loss for them, especially A.D. Mitchell. Basically costing them 14 points. Rams, another game where, they're just hanging around. And they find a way to get it done. Get held to some field goals in the end zone, but got touchdowns when they needed them. Good win for them. Tough loss to the Colts here. Jags Niners. Well, actually, sorry. This score is wrong. Trying to Okay, somehow I missed both this game. I just copy and paste my format from my picks and just delete the spread and change the score. Um, let me update the scores here. Okay, it was 26-21 for this game. And then I know the Ravens scored 20. What do I want to say? 37 the Chiefs scored, I want to say. Let me just double check. Yep, 20 to 37. Okay, so those scores are correct. Anyway, Jags Niners. The Jags defense, I have been extremely impressed with this season. They are like turnover machines on defense. That defense is absolutely. Devin Lloyd had like a superstar type game. He had 2 picks, forced a fumble late. A couple weeks later, the Jags had a first down to ice the game. Their defense has been absolutely insane. Now they're going to be able to force as many turnovers as they had the whole season. I don't think so. Who knows? But I don't think so. But I think they could play at a good level, a pretty high level still. They really should be 4-0, but maybe they should have absolutely beaten the Bengals week 2. But maybe you can say they got some things bounced away against the Texans last week as well, even though they did have some bad drops. Um, but sorry, I'm just on my phone here. Sorry. So yeah, Jags defense was extremely impressive. The Niners defense played a real. You wouldn't really think they did just from the score. The Niners defense, per usual, this season played really good. I believe it should. Well, 7 of the Jags points came from punt return touchdown. Obviously, nothing they can do there. The Niners defense. Besides that, like most of the season, the offense puts the defense in a bad position or a position where they need the ball back to the other team's really going to have momentum. And the Niners defense did just that, force some stops. The Jags offense didn't do too much. They had one really long touchdown drive where it's like a 3rd and 15. They're backed up in their own end zone. Travis Hunter gets an insane catch. They end up going down the field and scoring. Besides that drive, they really did not move. And no, okay, no, that was on the same drive the player's thinking of. But besides that drive, it feels like the Jags did really not move the ball too well. They just kept benefiting from good field positioning. Purdy, he had a decent stat line, I think, but he kind of struggled in this game. Had 2 picks. One of them was pretty bad, I think. Had the fumble at the end of the game where it looks like, after the Jags missed the field goal, I was like, all right, the Niners are going to win this game. And again, Devin Lloyd forced the turnover. I believe it was Devin Lloyd. So, Purdy's struggling a bit. They just announced, the Niners did, that he's out against the Rams for Thursday night. I guess he re-aggravated the injury that he had. Well, I think it was a couple of things, but he re-aggravated one of them. Jennings is out too. They announced Pearsall. Pearsall's actually been really good for them, so that's a bright spot on their offense this season. McCaffrey's still healthy. That's another bright spot for them. But yeah, they're off. If Mac Jones had played this game, I honestly think they would have won. Not saying it's all on Purdy, but he did, like I kind of predicted he might have, I predicted the Niners to win. I thought Purdy might have a bit of rust in this game, put the Niners in a bad spot with a bad turnover too, and that's kind of what happened. And it was the big difference in this game. Again, Jags defense, I've been very impressed with them. They're 3-1, probably should be 4-0. They have a big game against the Chiefs, and this was a good measuring stick game for them. And yes, the Niners are extremely banged up. They're still one of the better teams in the league. They, outside of like kind of the outlier years, they're extremely injured like last year in 2020. The Niners are consistently one of the better teams in the league the past couple of years. So, good measuring stick opportunity for the Jags, and they won. So on the road. So give a lot of credit to them. Niners, tough one here. Oh boy, Ravens Chiefs. This was a surprise. In no world did I predict the Chiefs would be able to put up 37 and win in a blowout. The Ravens went right down the field and scored. AJ Brown apologized for wasn't shading Sirianni, Hurts, or anyone after 2-catch game. Okay, well, that's interesting. Anyway, yeah, no world. I mean, I was pretty confident the Ravens were going to win. I thought the game was going to be close either way, but I did not expect the Chiefs to blow them out. The Ravens defense is an absolute disaster right now. it was going into this game, and I thought they would be able to play well this game. Not the case, obviously. And they had a bunch of injuries in this game. At one point, they had 6 starters missing from the defense. So that's not a recipe for success, anytime pretty much. And then the offense was extremely sub. They got a garbage time touchdown late. Besides that, besides their first touchdown drive, they did not do too much. They only had 2 field goals, and one of them, the Chiefs were probably still going to win the game. Even the Ravens scored a touchdown here, but it was 3rd and 1, the third quarter. The Ravens were down at 17, and I believe it was 17, and they go empty. Or actually, I don't know. I think they just Hill in the backfield, but they passed it, and the Chiefs get a sack, and the Ravens settle for a field goal. The Ravens also earlier in the game had a sequence where it's 4th and 1, and they take Henry off the field. They pass it again, and it's incomplete. Why are they passing the ball on 3rd and 4th and 1? Not only why are they, and again, easy to second guess because it didn't work out, but not only that, why are you taking Henry off the field? Even if you don't run it with him, the Chiefs have to prepare for the threat of it, but you take him off the field. So that's bad coaching, and that it feels like Todd Monken in particular passes, even though he's been phenomenal with the Ravens for the most part, he passes, gets too pass heavy sometimes in situations, especially when his team is trailing. It's like he just completely abandons the run game. In the 23 AFC Championship game, that's exactly what happened. That was a lot of talk after that game, how he only ran the ball with 6 design runs to his running back, something like that. And they were only down, 1 to 2 scores most of the game. So it's not like they're down 3 or 4 scores and they have to pass. He just completely abandons the run game. But yeah, they went right down the field and scored, and then the Chiefs did too, but they were held to a field goal. Then the Ravens get some first downs, and Lamar throws a pick. They go right down the field. Ravens defense makes a stand in the end zone, holds them to another field goal. So they're still up 7-6. And then, the Chiefs started getting touchdowns instead of field goals from that point on. And it was just a disaster for the Ravens. Lamar got hurt. He had a hamstring injury. People thought he quit on the Ravens, but now it got announced he's out probably at least this week, maybe multiple weeks. So I guess that's not the case. So Cooper Rush is going to be the starter for them. They're in some serious trouble. Now, I think they'll still make the playoffs, but I don't think they'll be making a Super Bowl push. But who knows? John Harbaugh, his seat might be heating up. A lot of people talking about that. I guess the good thing for their offense, Ronnie Stanley was injured in this game. I don't know how severe it is, but besides that, at least their offense isn't injured. Their defense is a mess. And even with their healthy guys, but even without them, it's obviously going to be even worse. And they play, again, the Texans' offense hasn't been too good. Their defense is going to be extremely tough for Cooper Rush and company. So Ravens in trouble. Are the Chiefs back? That's kind of the talk. Now, I'm not ready to say it. If they do this against the Jags and the Lions, who they play in 2 weeks, I think that's going to be, I don't think you can argue against it. But, this Ravens defense, I expected to play better. But now after this, it's like, all right, well, the Ravens lost multiple starters in the middle of the game. You would hope, especially with Worthy coming back, you would hope the Chiefs can move the ball on them. Just one game, am I ready to say they're back after 3 extremely subpar performances offensively? Not quite yet. And again, the Jags game, I think I forgot to mention this because I get such spontaneous thoughts when I was talking about the Jags. But again, great measuring stick game for the Jags, and I'm very interested. Their defense turnover machine, how's it going to look against the Chiefs offense, which clearly just had its best game of the season? That's going to be a matchup I'm intrigued and looking forward to seeing play out. But Ravens, just a disaster, a complete disaster. And, Chiefs, great overall team win. Their defense has played phenomenal 3 weeks in a row. Hate the Chiefs. Hopefully that's not the case, but good win for them here. Bears-Raiders, I was so close to my score prediction for this game. I had Raiders winning 24-23. The Bears basically did anything in their power to make the Raiders win, and Geno Smith basically gave it right back. He played one of the worst games of his career, and he played abysmal. I mean, out of 4 games, 2 of them he's been absolutely abysmal. I mean, my team week 1 made him look like the greatest quarterback in NFL history. He was abysmal against Chargers. He played good against the Commanders last week, and then he's abysmal this game. He had what 3 interceptions this game. And again, the Raiders defense played a solid game. The Bears offense, they kept getting in scoring position and penalties. Something would happen. They had a missed snap. That was bad. Lost much yardage to kick a field goal. Max Crosby did an insane play where he batted the pass Caleb Williams threw and picked it off himself. That was an insane play. Raiders defense, kept him in the game. The good thing for the Raiders is Genty. This was by far his best game. He was breaking tackles. He had a monster game, had a couple touchdowns. By far his best game as a pro. But Geno was just absolutely terrible this game. I mean, he's probably the primary reason they won. At least the last drive he was clutch and got them in field goal position to win the game. But the Bears had the blocked field goal to win the game at the end. They honestly probably deserved to win the game. They kind of outplayed the Raiders, at least from my perspective, and just kept getting some unlucky breaks to happen in their favor. A lot of talk about the Ben Johnson, the halftime interview. I think Ben Johnson basically said that he misheard the reporter. It took me like two or three times to replay it. I thought she said what Ben Johnson thought too, is she's talking about the offense. What do you need to do? And I thought she said you need to change what you're doing. From Ben Johnson's perspective, he's probably pissed off at in general at the mistakes his team's making, and so and then he has that comment. He's like, who are you? You're a reporter. I'm an NFL coach. Like, who the hell are you to say that comment? It's probably what he was thinking. So, I can honestly understand why he answered that way. But then she said, do you need to change what you're doing? But she kind of said the first part a bit quietly, and Ben Johnson said he misheard her. So, he's not too happy with the way he handled that or proud of the way he handled that. But, I probably would have, at least internally, if had a similar response to him there, if that's what I thought I heard. But good win for the Bears here against the Raiders are not great, but I think they're a bit better than people think they will be, giving them credit for. Geno's just been awful. That defense, so I always say Patrick Graham, very underrated defensive coordinator, solid defense. So tough one for the Raiders, but good win for the Bears here. Sunday night game. This was an absolute shocker to me. First of all, I think the first rule change, maybe you can argue, should be the tush push ban. But if it's not that, it should be, in my opinion, that ties need to be removed from the NFL. A great game like this going to end in tie, and it's just so ugly in the standings, especially now that this, most TV stations, TV networks have each team's record. You just see the win-loss and then dash the tie, the one. It's just ugly to look at. It's just annoying. And, I run a pick'em league, so I'm going to have to do dash one for, every one of the overall saints. It's going to be a pain in the ass. The Packers, their bye week, I think, is coming at a good time. I mean, they moved the ball well. Obviously, they did pretty good offensively. They put up 40. But, their defense looked phenomenal the first 2 weeks. Actually, the first 3 weeks, even though they lost last week, their defense played great against the Browns. The Cowboys' offense has been much better than expected, at least, how I thought it would be. But missing Lamb, their line's banged up. You figured that this would be a game the Packers' defense dominates. And the Packers were up 13-0, and it's all right, well, they're kind of dominating, but they're only up 13-0. The Cowboys just get a touchdown. They're right there. They're going to have the momentum on their side. That's exactly what happened. They get a touchdown, then they get a strip sack on Love, and then they get another touchdown. They have the lead at the half. Back and forth late. Dallas takes the lead late. Packers get a touchdown or a field goal to get it to overtime. And Dallas gets the ball. Parsons saves a touchdown. And then Xavier Howard retires. Okay, that just came out of the blue. Anyway, Dallas kicks field goal. Then the Packers, they moved the ball down the field. I thought they were honestly going to touchdown to win the game, but they nearly blew the game with their clock management. Now, I actually probably would have did the same thing, at least, play selection wise. Second down, Jordan Love cannot check the ball down there. Like 20 seconds left and no timeouts. You can't check the ball down there unless you know your runner's going to get out of bounds, or your receiver rather. It was to the running back, but hopefully you know what I mean. The guy getting the ball is going to get out of bounds. So she should have just thrown it away there. But if you just go up and spike the ball, you're basically conceding the tie. So I understand there was like 20 seconds left. You think you can get a playoff, and they did, but with 1 second left on the clock. But you run up to the line, you take a quick shot at the end zone, and they're like, "Oh, what horrible clock management by the Packers, Chris Collinsworth." Yes, it sort of was how long the play took, but again, you might as well take a quick shot instead of just conceding for the tie. So then after that, they kick the field goal and tie the game. But yeah, their bye is coming at a good time. So they certainly have some things to clean up, I think. I mean, this is the first bad defensive performance of the Packers, but allowing 40 to the Cowboys without their top receiver, who scored 14 against the Bears IR defense last week. And again, they should have scored more if they had 2 turnovers in the end zone. And maybe you can say they had a week of preparation, knowing Lamb was going to be out versus trying to adjust on the fly with Lamb being out against the Bears. But still, should have not allowed this Dallas team to score 40. Dak looked phenomenal. He's looked really good most of the season. The Cowboys, playing better than I think most people expected. Their defense is still abysmal. Their defense made some big stands, though, in this game. The drives the Packers didn't score on, at least touchdowns, were pretty clutch drives for the Cowboys defense, at least to hang in there. But yeah, Packers, they absolutely should have won this game. Disappointing for them, even though they didn't lose. It's probably, got to feel like a loss to them. Micah in the locker room said he was pissed off. I'm sure the team feels that way. Matt LaFleur, I can't imagine, is too happy. And, again, Dallas, again, probably if you ask them, they won't say it's a moral victory, but it sort of is. They kind of were set to get blown out, and they tied. And you can argue they should have won. So you can argue that both ways, but still. Again, I was just going to say good win for Dallas because it feels like they won the game if they didn't. So just an interesting for the game, and a tie really sucks. But Cowboys sort of a moral victory, you can argue. Packers, their bye is coming at the right time. And then the Monday night, they did a doubleheader, which I absolutely hate. One of them being the 0-3 Jets against the 0-3 Dolphins. I think I got the score prediction, my score prediction exactly right. Or at least, no, I think I had the Jets scoring 16 or 17, maybe 18. And I got the Dolphins. I think I had them scoring 27. So at least I got that score prediction right. Dolphins offense got back on track. They moved the ball well most of this game. Jets defense forced a couple punts. Darren Waller with 2 touchdowns. Obviously, excuse me, the big takeaway is Tyreek getting injured. That was brutal. His leg was just bent in the wrong direction. That was brutal to see. Obviously, that's going to be a big, loss to them moving forward. Their offense moved the ball well. Looks like the Dolphins offense, sort of that we're accustomed to. Maybe not necessarily the big, explosive, 50-yard bomb plays, but, it looks a lot closer to the Dolphins offense than what we saw the first week against the Colts. Jets just couldn't get out of their own way in this game. They're all the penalties, they're shooting themselves in the foot. Aaron Glenn apparently was ripping his team after the game about that in the locker room. Justin Fields, I think, talked about that, how they just couldn't get out of their own way. Penalties. The first try, they went right down the field, and Braden Allen fumbled in the end zone. It was one of those games for the Jets. Just flags killed them, penalties killed them. The fumbles, there's the Braden Allen one I just mentioned, then they get the opening kickoff, and they fumble it to start the second half. Just plays like that, just kill, and they're still right there. They only lost by 6. They got the ball back in 2 seconds. They actually got a decent amount of yardage just playing the lateral game. There was I think Garrett Wilson, he made a big burst, and I'm like, holy shit, are they actually gonna get close here? But like the Dolphins stopped them around their own 40, I think. Um, but yeah, their offense get back on track. It feels like the defense is playing a bit better. Jets, the potential's there. The run game, Justin Fields had a ridiculous play on 4th and short, whereas he bootlegged it out. It looked like the play was blown up, and he just reversed direction, got a 40-something yard rush touchdown. It was like a couple of those plays he had with the Bears back in 22. Jets, they've been competitive in 3 of their 4 games. They've lost all of them. That's going to be the story for most of the season. I think they'll at least get a couple wins this year. But Jets, they had the pieces. They're right there, and just unfortunate things like self-inflicted wounds happen. Dolphins, at least they get a very much needed win. They play the Panthers, so maybe they could win that game too. Probably should, honestly. Dolphins, much needed win. Jets just couldn't get out of their own way here. And then the other Monday night game, Bengals Broncos. Now, as a Patriots fan, I like this score, 28-3. Ooh, Eagles opened AJ Brown trade. Wow, that is. If they trade him, boy oh boy. Anyway, as a Patriots fan, I like the final score of this game, 28-3. It's pretty self-explanatory. Just looking at the score, Denver dominated the game. Now the Bengals went right down the field, and they got aided by some penalties. They put up a field goal, then they forced a 3-and-out, and I'm like, okay, Cincy, like we are here to play. And then from there, the Broncos just dominated. The Bengals could not stop the Broncos offense unless penalties. Basically, the only thing that stopped the Broncos offense. They had a nice goal line stand, Cincy did, when Denver was really able to pull the game open and make it 21-3. But then, at the end of the first half, Bo Nixon coming out right down the field, very little time left, and Nix lasered a pass into Sutton for the touchdown, and then you kind of just felt it was over after that. Browning looked awful. The offensive line was a disaster. Jamar didn't get the ball much. Zach Taylor, his seat is extremely starting to heat up. I mean, it's one thing to lose the game, and most people expected them to lose this game, but you got to at least make it closer and make it more respectable, and at least put up more than 3 points, and at least get a touchdown or two this game. But they couldn't do that. And again, Denver's defense is really good. So that's a big reason why, and obviously Browning instead of Burrow. But, Browning, I keep saying, I don't think he's that bad, but maybe he is. I mean, a big part of it is just the line being a disaster, but obviously he's a downgrade from Burrow, but I'm just waiting for him to look like the Browning from the 23 season, or even the week 2 Browning, where he had 2 bad picks, but besides that, he played fairly well. But yeah, the Bengals are just a mess right now. I mean, they're going to be in salary cap hell, I think, because of them dishing out the contracts to Jamar. Well, first Burrow a couple years ago, then Jamar. Well, obviously Burrow's deserving it. All these guys are, but basically they're heavy majority of their salaries going to Burrow, Jamar, T. Higgins, and they just paid Hendrickson $30 million. And it's just on a 1 year, so they're going to probably lose him after this year. And then unless Burrow comes back, you have to imagine this year, at least if they continue to play like this, is obviously done. I keep saying as a Burrow fan, hopefully Browning can keep them afloat, float them around 500 till Burrow comes back. But who the hell knows at this point with how bad Cincy looks. Denver, much needed win, took care of business against a struggling team right now. Knicks look great. The run game looked great. They had their first 100-plus yard rusher, J.K. Dobbins, under Sean Payton, and R.J. Harvey had a good game too. He had a touchdown reception late in the game. They're down 28-3. It's 4th-and-short. Obviously, the game's over. There's only a few minutes left, but Zach Taylor punts it. Like, why not just go for it? What do you got to lose at this point? Some people saying he gave up. I don't know if that's quite the case, but Jamar confronting him on the sideline, he said, it's just they're competitive. Oh boy, since he's in trouble, and they played Detroit, so at least I think that's a matchup. So good luck to them. They play this poorly, and Detroit plays as well as they've been playing. Good luck to Cincy. It probably will be even a worse score if that's the case than it was in this game, but we'll have to see. Denver, much needed win in this one. Who do they actually? Let me see who they play. Um, let's see here. The Eagles. That should be a really good game. Um, that is a very intriguing game this week. But anyway, Denver, much needed win for them to avoid the 1-3 hole at home. Took care of business. They look great. Great win for them. Cincy, oh boy, just a disaster. Okay, let me just make sure I got all the games here. Okay, so yeah, that'll basically do it for this video. So pretty entertaining week. Hopefully, the upsets and the weird things are less and less, so can do better betting wise and picks wise. Both years I've done my YouTube channel have by far been the worst I've done picks wise. So as far as picks wise, hopefully you guys are like, Jesus, does this guy know anything about football? They've just my picks the past 2 years have not been very good compared to years prior. This year I'm like pretty mid. Maybe I'm just washed up, even though I'm only 23. But yeah, pretty entertaining week. My team got a big win. That certainly helped. Even though the Chiefs won, that made me a bit upset, but that's okay. Yeah, pretty entertaining week. Some close games, some blowouts. Yeah, some surprises like the Sunday night game. Pretty good week across the board. Hopefully you guys did good with your picks, fantasy, betting, all that good stuff, as I always say. Be on the lookout for my Thursday night game prediction video. I'm going to drop tomorrow sometime, hopefully, and then hopefully, sometime Friday, the rest of my score predictions for week 5. Can't believe we're approaching week 5 already. It's absolutely insane. Be on the lookout for that if you're interested. Besides that, thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed, and take it easy, guys.